All right, I got my friend John here. I'm super excited. This guy is super talented. You're gonna read a poem for me today, right?
I'm gonna read a couple of poems.
All right, I got my friend John here. I'm super excited. This guy is super talented. You're gonna read a poem for me today, right?
I'm gonna read a couple of poems. I'm gonna read
a couple.
poem I wrote and a poem that the poem that it was inspired from.
Oh, super cool. So we're gonna get started today. I'm excited. I asked John if he would be a part of the conversation because times these days we need to have hard conversations, and I want to hear his heart. As a black man, he has experienced racism. He has overcome it into certain levels of not growing bitter. You're the kindest, sweetest soul that I've ever met, and so I'm super excited for y'all to get to hear this today. So where you want to go, John? I feel like in here is we need to set the stage for you. We're gonna find a spot and we'll be right back. Okay, we found a better spot. It's just the stage at North Little Rock. But I'm gonna flip the camera around because this is John's time.
So one of my favorite poems is by Langston Hughes, who is also, like, coincidentally my favorite poet. The poem is titled I Too. It's by Langston Hughes. I too sing America. I am the darker brother. They send me to eat in the kitchen when company comes, but I laugh and eat well and grow strong. Tomorrow, I'll be at the table when company comes. Nobody will dare say to me, eat in the kitchen then. Besides, they'll see how beautiful I am and be ashamed. I too am America. And so that's one of my favorite poems because just this idea that he wants to be a part of America. It's like a joyful tone. It's not like anything he is feeling like trying to make anybody feel guilt or anything. He just is trying to say, like, I want to be a part of this, you know. And as a black person, you know, in his history, he was born, I think, in the early 20th century. And so he grew up through, like, segregation and Jim Crow laws. And so his experience with racism was probably a lot more real than it is today. And so even in that way, he's saying, like, I want to have a seat at the table. You know, I don't want to be cast to the back because I'm darker. I don't want to be ashamed. And so, and the part that really gets me is that this part at the end is like, besides, they'll see how beautiful I am and be ashamed. I too am America. And so, I'm not trying to, like, inspire any guilt here, but, you know, just that poem to me really, like, it resonates with me a lot about the current situation. And so, because I was inspired by that poem, I wrote a poem similar to it. I guess I had a lot of feelings behind this one with a lot of the young African-American men who, like, have been killed by, like, police officers or just people who, like, just don't like the way they look. So I think I wrote this poem while I was living in Russellville. If anybody knows anything about Russellville, there's a lot of, like, small towns around it, and they have, like, some history of racism. And I didn't know that actually until I talked to my uncle, who's a lot older than I am, or my great uncle, my grandma's brother. And he was telling me, like, you know, like, be safe, like, you know, that used to be a town where, you know, black people couldn't be out after sundown. So
I didn't know that.
It's a term. It's called sundown towns. Really? Like, if you're a black person and you're caught out after the sun went down, like, they would.
How long ago is that, John?
That's a good question. Like, my uncle is probably, like, 60-ish, and he remembers that. Wow. So, like.
So it's really like you're the next generation.
Well, two. So, like.
Oh, it's your great uncle.
My great uncle.
Okay.
So
wow.
He recalls that, and so I guess it had to be, like, probably around in the 60s during probably, like, Jim Crow and segregation. And so
I think people think, like, racism is so far gone because we have come so many leaps and bounds, you know, as, like, there's not a curfew anymore, but, like, to think that it's just gone from 2 generations, like, it takes, unless you're proactive about breaking the chains and creating a new legacy for your family, it's still there. Like, it's just pretty shocking. So, sorry, so back to you.
I'm not saying anything about, like, that area. Like, in all honesty, when I was there, everybody showed me love. I was telling a story to Drew last week about a time my car broke down and I had to, like, walk to somebody's house, and I was really.
Oh yeah, I was shocked by that story.
I was really nervous, but, like, the people actually were just, like, they're really good Christian people, and they were just like, you know, we're supposed to help our brother, and like they like gave me gas. It ended up being a bigger issue, but like they tried to help me as best they could. And so, so I'm not trying to say anything about that area,
absolutely.
but just that.
But not that long ago,
the experience,
there was.
of the past, like, and my uncle, who's only 2 generations away, like, he was, like, literally, like, be safe, be careful. So this poem is called I Too Fear America, and it's inspired by Langston Hughes' I Too poem. I'm somewhere I shouldn't be, wearing a black hoodie. I hope they don't see me. I am an anomaly among Anglo supremacists, somewhere I shouldn't be. America preaches freedom and equality, yet condones ethnocentricity. I hope they don't see me. America is founded on liberty, but I'm not free if I'm uncomfortable being me somewhere I should be. So I too fear America. Teal, Trayvon, Freddie, I hope they don't see me. When and where will I fit comfortably and not be seen as a threat to society when I know I'm somewhere I should be? America, I want you to see me. And so, I guess that was a poem I wrote after, this sounds strange, this was a poem I wrote after the last election, because a lot of us had a lot of fear and anxiety after that because of the rhetoric of the president, and I don't want this to be political, but like, in all honesty, I remember the day after the election happened, and I just remember I woke up, I looked at the election results, and I grabbed my disc golf disc, and I just went and played disc golf by myself in the woods. And I just wanted to get away for a bit, just to like think about everything that happened. And so, and that was, at that point, I decided to take a trip back home to North Little Rock, and I had a long conversation with my uncle about the history of like Russellville and, you know, the towns outside of that. And so, and then that kind of like led me to write this poem. And like I said, I told you earlier, I've been working on it and like trying to like edit it. I've submitted it to a few journals, but poetry is just like one way that I really feel like I can express my feelings. Like I said, there was a lot of fear, anxiety, unsure, like I was just unsure about what was going to happen. So, but yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool, John. I love it. I think you don't have to apologize about being not wanting to go political. Like, that's how you truly felt in that moment is, you know, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but maybe fearful and full of anxiety of like what's going to happen now to our country. I know it felt like probably leaps and bounds with having President Obama and Michelle there, and then to almost, did it, and you can tell me, did it feel like we took a step back?
It did, and it wasn't just like about the race either. It was like a lot of his language towards like immigrants and a lot of the language towards like women, and so like it was, I think it was just a lot that we worked so hard for in this country to like, for a lot of like the minorities, that it seemed like he just wasn't a representation of like all of America.
Right.
So
that's so good. So good. Well, thank you, John, so much for sharing. We love your poems. If anyone's out there, we're going to watch this and can do, I don't know, what is it called? Publish it? Publish it! It's so good. It needs to be heard. Thank you for doing this.
Thanks, Jess.